All right, let's get right into it. Ladies and gentlemen, President Trump just made another major move in the fight over birthright citizenship. And this time, he's coming at the issue from a completely different direction. Remember, the Supreme Court recently shut down Trump's broader attempt to limit birthright citizenship, ladies and gentlemen. And naturally, the media treated that like the entire issue, it was over, it was done with. But apparently Trump did not. And now the administration has now rolled out a new strategy targeting birth tourism, visa fraud, and people entering the United States specifically to give birth and secure American citizenship for their children. And Trump isn't hiding what this is. He openly said the administration was making adjustments after the Supreme Court ruling, and now we get to find out what those adjustments are. And so we got that coming up, plus much more. And so as always, if you do enjoy the content, smash that thumbs up button. That's the best way to tell me. Subscribe to stay locked in with the future videos, and shout out to everybody, especially those who watch to the end, and comment down below. I appreciate every single one of you. Let's jump right into it.
And we're not going to let it happen. So, Steve, if you will, please.
Yes, so today the president signed these two executive orders here relating to birthright citizenship and birth tourism. As the president mentioned, the 14th Amendment was passed exclusively in the aftermath of the Civil War so to ensure that the children of slaves would be citizens. It had no other meaning and purpose outside of that. And that's been clear, obviously, since the day that it was passed. You can go back and you can read the congressional debates. This is not something that's even seriously contested by anybody. The president is using his authority as commander-in-chief to sign first an executive order using the new ruling the Supreme Court issued to expand the definitions of people who are ineligible for birthright citizenship. That includes, for example, alien enemies of the United States, members of foreign terrorist organizations, and large categories of people who lobby and act on behalf of foreign governments. And so with taking this action, it ensures that large numbers of people who wrongly would be getting birthright citizenship will no longer be eligible for those benefits. The second action that he's taking, which is especially historic, is for the first time ever in American history to ban birth tourism. So I want you to really let that sink in. This has been something that people have talked about not only for years, but for decades. The idea that people come here pretending to be a tourist, pretending to be a visitor, saying they want to go to Disneyland, or they want to go visit a monument or go to a national park, but the real reason they're here is to have a child, to make that child an automatic citizen, leave our country, and then have a U.S. citizen child. It gives them access under this broken system to welfare benefits, ultimately to the voting booth, and all the other rights and privileges that belong solely to Americans. So that practice of birth tourism is, as of the signing of this order, hereby banned. And what that means is that no one in the world is any more allowed to obtain a visa for this fraudulent purpose.
Yeah, and so there you have that. And so President Trump being more detailed, basically, in his attack and his attempt to tackle this birthright citizenship issue that the Supreme Court struck down the first time. And so now he's coming at it from a different angle, more specific, more detailed as far as to exactly how to take on these individuals who knowingly are choosing to break the law in order to gain access to American citizenship, ladies and gentlemen. That's what this is all about. I mean, it just kind of really blows my mind. People love to hang their hat on this. The 14th Amendment says any person born on American soil is an American citizen. Okay, I get it, Sherlock Holmes. You discovered the mystery of the century. But that's not what it's being used for. That's not how everybody's going about, doing their business. There are those who are bad actors and seeking to take advantage of that loophole. And the fact that we know that it is a loophole. We know it's a loophole. We know there are individuals who willingly take advantage of it. And yet you have those out there who say, let it happen. It's America. It's the 14th Amendment. You can't do anything about it. To me, it doesn't make any sense. But listen to this. This is how they're going to actually go about as far as enforcing and, differentiating between a visa and someone who's trying to do more than just a tourist visa. Take a listen.
Can you help us understand how you distinguish between a tourist and a birth tourist?
Well, I'll let you discuss it, please.
Yes, happy to. And so, by the way, that was an excellent presentation.
Thank you,
Will.
Stephen.
For those of you who want to do your research on this, Section 215A of the Immigration and Nationality Act gives the president this authority. 215A of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Very rarely used, probably one of the strongest laws in the entire federal code, gives him this power. And that's not the only, but it's the main statutory authority that's being used in this order. So birth tourism is by definition a fraud on the American system, on the American taxpayer, on the American visa. If you're coming here, and again, your stated purpose is that you're a tourist, then by definition, you are here to come for a few weeks, look at what we have, engage in commerce, and leave. So if you're telling a consular officer you're here as a tourist, but your true purpose and intent is to go to a baby mill, give birth, and try to mint an American citizen while you're here, then you're committing a fraud against the American government. And by definition, that visa can and should and will be now denied.
All right, so there you have that. And listen, this is going to get challenged eventually by someone who's going to sue, and it'll end up perhaps going the same route as the previous executive order where it ends up in front of the Supreme Court. We will have to wait and see on that part. But I'll just say, I mean, at least the president is using the power he has, and I'm glad that Stephen Miller pointed out exactly what bylaw gives the president this authority. At least he's doing something. My whole thing is, let's not pretend as if we don't know what the 14th Amendment was written for. And the president is remaining vigilant, ladies and gentlemen, in his effort. And so we know we got bad actors out there. We know there are people who take advantage of the system, and that was their goal from the very, very beginning. And the idea that simply it should be allowed and there will be no consequences, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But you know, that wouldn't stop the folks at MS Now from losing their mind once again. And so take a listen.
When you think about the multi-pronged immigration effort that this president has, whether that be ICE in the streets of our cities, whether that be closing essentially the border, and then this, what do you, as someone who has been covering, black and brown folks for such a long time, what does that do to the psyche of black and brown people in this country, immigrants in this country, people who want to come to this country?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think you're right. I've been covering race for a long time. I think about the 14th Amendment and what, we need to talk about the origins of that. I think folks need kind of that civic awareness. Birthright citizenship is not just like some incidental provision of immigration law, right? The 14th Amendment was literally adopted after the Civil War in direct response to a country that denied black people citizenship. And so, the citizenship clause of the 14th Amendment says people born or naturalized in the United States, are subject to its jurisdiction, and those people are citizens. So the Supreme Court's June opinion kind of brings that history up. It upholds the principle of citizenship. And so we should remember where this amendment comes from. This was part of America's answering one of the central failures of our founding, like the ability of government to decide that an entire class of people born here somehow doesn't fully belong here. And so that's kind of what I think about. This is a fight that's much bigger than immigration policy. It's a fight over whether citizenship is a constitutional guarantee or whether it's something that political leaders get to decide.
All right, and so there you have that. And so she's trying to sell you on this idea that it doesn't matter. That's basically it. Let's ignore all of the bad actors who are manipulating and taking advantage of the system, who understand that the way the rules are set up, that there are no consequences for their actions, and that the risk is essentially worth the reward. That's basically what it is. Because the actual punishment is so low, well, at least, until today, what President Trump continues to try and do. But before now, because the punishment for this action is basically obsolete, there isn't one, then it leaves the gate wide open to any individual who wants to take advantage of it. But nonetheless, let's move on. Now let's go ahead and jump into this next story, ladies and gentlemen. This one is involving Rhino Majority Senate Leader John Thune, and how now the president may have just gave the Senate leader his walking papers. This after weeks and weeks of the Senate Majority Leader unable to push the SAVE Act, and it was seemingly not having any desire to do so. Until, well, at least now is what it looks like, as we are on the eve of Congress leaving town for basically the month now and taking their August hiatus. their recess, aka vacation time, and now it seems as if perhaps maybe John Thune is getting the message. And so let's jump into this as President Trump refuses to say whether John Thune should be reelected as Senate leader following the lack of the Save America Act. And so let's take a listen to this.
Do you want Thune to serve another term as leader? Do you think, would you support him?
Well, I don't want to get into that necessarily, but
Why?
I'll tell
A
you,
lot of people are thinking about it. This is a big issue.
I get along with him. It's unfortunate that he doesn't have the vote.
But do you actually get along with him?
I do.
But you clearly disagree. I mean, you have big disagreements.
I do have disagreements. I believe strongly in terminating the filibuster. And by the way, getting Save America Act approved immediately and about 400 other things in every hour of every day. Boom, boom, boom. You get whatever you want. You'd get.
Democrats would do it too, though, right? They'd get.
Well, they're going to do that.
Guys don't
They're going to do that. If they get in, they're going to do it very quickly. I mean, you're wrong on that one.
We'll see.
They're going to do that so fast. And I say, as long as we all know that they're going to do it, I'm so shocked to hear you. But as long as I know that they're going to do that, you do it. I would do it whether they did it or not. We would get in the next 2.5 years, we would get things that nobody ever dreamt of. We would be in office for the next 100 years. And I'll tell you what, if they get in, I may be the last Republican president.
I mean, listen, at this point, nuke the filibuster. Democrats are not looking to come across the aisle and work side by side with Republicans. Right now, their goal is chaos. Right now, their goal is to create as much confusion, as much disruption in order to take back at least the House. And if not, I mean, obviously they want to do both, but at least the House is their goal. And so they have no reason to sit here and actually work with Republicans. It wouldn't make political sense for them at this point. And so you nuke the filibuster. You get it passed through. You ensure that voting and that our elections are safe and secure. Instead of sitting here clinging on to this idea of, well, I mean, and listen, too many times these politicians, you have people who they want to play it safe. They want to make sure that their slot is secure. You got a few rhinos out there who they're going to vote against it for whatever reason. And that's something that Senator Kennedy laid out the reality of. And so I want you to take a listen to this.
So it's going to be a vote-a-rama today. You're probably going to be here late. The question is, will you stay or will you go? Are you going to get all of this done in time to leave for 5 weeks on the August recess, or will you be here early next week as well?
Well, I'm fine being here all next week. I think if we all agreed to stay through next week, we could get all of our work done and give everybody a chance to offer amendments. Now, I understand some of my colleagues are up for re-election and they want to get home to campaign, and that's fair, and I get all that. I'm not putting them down. I'm just saying that I think we're going to leave some stuff on the table because I don't think senators are going to. I don't think they're going to stay here, and you run into an attendance problem at some point. If senators start leaving, you don't have the votes to do what you need to do.
I mean, listen, the reality is some of these politicians, they're far more concerned about how to maintain their position than actually what the position entails as far as the job that needs to be done. And so they're more concerned about going to campaign and hold on to that seat than actually what you're supposed to be doing when in that time that you are in the position and holding that actual seat. I mean, take a look at the calendar, ladies and gentlemen, with the remaining schedule from August 1st to December 31st of 2026. And I went over this in the past, but one more time to reiterate, ladies and gentlemen, with 153 days between that time period, days scheduled in recess is 105. Days in session is 48. And so plenty of time to go ahead and do all of your campaigning that you look to do. August alone, it's basically done. After the 7th, they're done. If they do not remain in Washington and they do not get back until September 1st. And then once again, come October, it's the same thing. Away, basically, for the entirety of the month after the first week. And then November becomes a bit of a split because you have Thanksgiving. And so you have that small period of time basically where they work in the month of November. They don't work a full week the entire month of November. They don't, as far as days scheduled to actually be in session. In December, by that time, it's a wrap. You got Christmas coming up. Looks to me that there would be plenty of time to do their campaigning if that's what they needed to do, if they stayed in order to get this thing done down to the wire in August. That's that's my perspective on it. But here's more from Senator Kennedy and what he thinks is going to happen. Check it out.
The threshold to get it passed. Here's what the Majority Leader, Senator Thune, said about voting on the SAVE Act.
We've had 5 votes on it already. We will, if we can, we'll figure out a way to get yet another vote on the Save America Act, but I don't expect the Democrats to change their view. This is an issue about going after Democrats, making this an issue in the fall campaigns and holding them accountable for being on the wrong side of an 80-20 issue with the American people.
So is that what it's really all about, going into the midterms saying the Democrats voted against this as opposed to actually getting this thing passed for the president?
Well, you know, I don't know, John. I mean, I honestly don't know. Everybody, I don't know what's in people's heads and what's in people's hearts. Here's what I do know. If we do reconciliation, we don't need any Democratic votes. Mm-hmm. We do have to get the permission of the parliamentarian. Yep. But there's a way to craft a voter integrity bill, the so-called SAVE Act, that I believe can pass muster with the parliamentarian, but we don't know unless we try. Now, Senator Thune, to his credit, is going to bring that to a vote on the floor. We're going to have a chance to do what we call get on the bill. I'm obviously going to vote yes. I think all Democrats will vote no. I don't know how many Republicans will vote no, but probably some will.
I mean, listen, the reality is they're jumping through all these loops, trying to figure out all these ways, nuke the filibuster, and it's far less complicated to get things done. But that doesn't seem to be the route that it will go. And so, I mean, listen, President Trump is not willing to endorse the Senate Majority Leader going into the future. And it looks like perhaps he is signing his own exit papers by his actions right here. But let's go ahead and jump into this last story, ladies and gentlemen. This one involves the president chiming in on the WNBA. This comes after one of the players, Sophia Cunningham, stood up to defend protecting women and their right to be able to compete against each other without men interfering. And apparently WNBA, other players had an issue with that, and other coaches had an issue with that, to the point where now you have literal players saying that they would be fine with trans women competing against them. They should be allowed. They would be welcome, open arms, to not only having them on their team, but also competing, which then prompted the president, which is why I'm sharing this story, to chime in on what he would do if he was a coach in the WNBA. And so before we get into what the president said, let me just give you guys a quick recap of some of the delusional, ridiculous things that these coaches and players are saying. Take a listen.
I think it's trans rights right now is our new battle. That's what I think I was saying, that like the battles have changed. Oh, yes. You know, like our intention's been the same, but now the environment has changed. We see trans people's rights being, you know, stripped away from them. There's a lot of discourse around trans athletes and what they can compete in. I would welcome a trans athlete on my team or against my team anytime. I don't think it's a problem in the world. It's just another way to kind of attack trans people.
With like, for me, sports is about belonging. It's about inclusivity. It's about allowing everyone to be their authentic self. You know, I'm big on that just because I have been criticized for my height, for my ethnicity. I've been in those "you shouldn't belong here" many times. And for me, I don't want that space, especially Golden State, to ever feel like that. So I'm all about women, little girls deserving to play, and that includes trans women. So I'm all about inclusivity.
Yeah, so there you have that, ladies and gentlemen, which led to the president chiming in on what he would do now, since that seems to be the WNBA stance if he was a WNBA coach. I mean, take a listen to this.
And I'll tell you what, if I were ever, I'd be the greatest women's basketball coach in history. Because I don't like LeBron James. I like Michael Jordan much better. But I'd go up to LeBron James. It doesn't matter. I'd say, LeBron, did you ever have any desire to be a woman? Because what I'd love you to do is star on my team that I'm building up. I will have the greatest team in history. They'll never lose. Nobody will come within 70 points of this team. Now, we have to change that, and we have to make it okay to talk about it. You know, the young lady I was talking about is afraid to talk about it. She's shunned and she's canceled when she talks about it.
I mean, listen, why stop there? Why not go with a whole starting five or perhaps your whole entire roster? You know, one player, why not do the whole roster, right? But listen, but all jokes aside, the reason why you have these women who they're making these ridiculous, outlandish statements about allowing men to compete in a sport that was created to separate men from women, that's why they put the W on it, WNBA, is because they know there will be no consequences. They know they can take these positions. They know they can sound self-righteous, and nothing's actually going to happen. There's not going to be a slew of teams who are going to come out and assign transgender women to come and play. Biological men aren't going to be signing up and getting drafted. They know that. I mean, some might put themselves and their information out there, but what WNBA team is actually going to step out and do it? They won't. And so because of that, they get to make these statements and know that nothing will really actually genuinely happen. But those are my thoughts in the update. Now I want to hear from you. Drop your comments down below. I appreciate when you guys chime in. Don't forget, you enjoy the content, smash that thumbs up. For more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.